So welcome, Doug.
Thank
you,
you,
so
Jason.
much for taking the time.
Our 20-something HR tech.
Exactly. You're the most popular man here.
No, I've been called the Kevin Bacon of HR tech, which I didn't know if that was a compliment or
Kevin
not.
Bacon.
Like everyone's 6 degrees connected to Kevin Bacon.
Oh, good.
There's some truth to it.
Well, so there are people, believe it or not, that don't know you.
Yes, I totally believe that.
Believe it or not.
Yes. And
Some
I tried
people
to hide for a year or two even.
Yeah. Well, you were gone, weren't you? Like, I remember talking. I remember the exact spot we were where you said, "I'm tapped out."
Yeah, exactly.
I'm done.
I'm all wrapped up. And I wore my flip-flops to HR Tech with shorts 2 years ago.
Because that was your
to
celebration.
Just try to say, signal, I'm done.
Yep. And then what?
And then everything changed with kind of this AI stuff. And in the entire the chessboard, I think, of the entire talent system is getting changed. And so I saw some really big opportunities. And I just couldn't not fix what I think is the biggest problem in all of talent right now.
So take us back, if we could,
Yep.
a few years as to
Yep,
how you
yep.
got into this world of HR. Your
Yes.
parents didn't raise you to be in HR, right?
I never would have ever thought that I was going to get into recruiting or talent technology. So I grew up as a programmer. I programmed, not on little cards like most people, but on mainframe computers with assembly language and all the other stuff. And so I got into computer programming first. And then I went to my first headhunting firm because I wanted to get a different job. And the guy that was the recruiter said, "Hey, you're like a geek that can speak. Like, why wouldn't you come?"
A geek that can speak. I like
Geek
that.
that can speak, yeah. So he says, "Why don't you come and become a recruiter for us? You can make gobs of money." And I was kind of bored with some of the programming stuff, and I had just gone to the Tony Robbins Walk on Fire experience. I did not burn my feet, which is good. There was a few people carted off, but so anyhow, I had all this energy, and my friends were all graduating from college and making gobs of money as stockbrokers and stuff, and I thought, I want to do something more. And the recruiting person said, hey, this will expose you to almost every company in the Twin Cities, what they're doing, how they're doing. You can help people get better jobs. They didn't even have computers in the recruiting company then.
Right,
they
yeah,
were
yeah.
on, carbon forms.
A few years
and
ago, right?
Rolodex cards. And so I just learned a lot about the psychology of how candidates think about things, what's important to them, how to have an honorable relationship between candidates and companies. It always astonished me that the companies also had no database or no record of who their people were.
Right.
So, I would get calls, panic calls from like Finger Hut, which was a company that's now gone, and they were implementing this crazy software, which was your old software, PeopleSoft.
Thank you. My old software, yeah.
And he calls me in a panic. He said, "My top PeopleSoft leader just went on maternity like a month early, and we're going live." He's like, "I need the best PeopleSoft person in the Twin Cities."
So what did you do? Founded a .com.
So what I did was I got on my computer because I had a database of everybody, and I said, "Well, walk down the hall to the third cubicle. That lady did all the PeopleSoft implementations."
Oh, and you knew that.
And I knew that, but he didn't know it because I knew their people better than they knew their people. And so it was a really interesting thing that having that data, having that information, making those connections really became just such a great life mission.
So go through the companies now. The stars.
Yeah, so I did that, and I started my own, and it was called Quantum Consulting and Placement.
Beautiful branding.
Yeah, it was really not the greatest, but and then that became techies.com. The internet hit, so I thought, hey, instead of me calling everybody and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" The internet showed up. They could log themselves in, create their own profile, find their own stuff, match things up. So we raised a gob of money, like a little over $100 million, and competed against the likes of Dice and Computer Jobs and stuff. Partnered with Gartner and CNET. So I learned a lot about how to internetize, if that's a word, the supply side, the capture side, and then how to bring that to companies and say, "Hey, stop newspaper advertising. There's candidates that have put themselves on the internet. There's great ways to match them, to find them, and connect them up with you." And so we did that massively at scale. And then the internet crashed, or the .com bubble crashed. And so unfortunately that business didn't make it. It was all the way to the IPO. Through that process, I took some time off after that, but every company that we worked with, Jason, said, I love what you're doing here because you're becoming kind of the Google for talent, but I don't want to just go from paying the Star Tribune $5,000 every Sunday to the Monster Board $5,000 every Sunday. I want people to come directly to me. I want them to find me, and I want to build my own relationship with talent. And so that's what gave birth to Jobs to Web. So when Techies went away, I basically took a lot of the concepts and put it into an enterprise application. And at that time, if you remember, the Teleos and the big ATS companies were kind of the only game in town with ATSs, and they were just getting started. But they were, kind of horrible at the candidate side of things. It was like, fill out these exhaustive tax reforms, and apply, and good luck. And so we showed up and said, well, hey, we can make it. There was 300 million searches a month on Google for jobs. And so I would do a search for healthcare jobs in Minnesota, and it was all Indeed and, Monster and Career Builder. And so the folks like at United Health Group and Alliance, they would never show up because those jobs were trapped within those systems. And so we had built a really great way to help bring jobs to the web and do all of these great search things so that all of our big companies, Best Buy, Target, everybody, when candidates would search for part-time jobs in Minnesota or in Bloomington or Edina, the talent would go directly to them. And so we were helping them to fill their jobs for pennies instead of gobs of dollars. They could see where everybody came from. And so we built that business up from 2006 to 2010, the worst recession ever. But companies, when they're not recruiting, they have time to innovate, and they have time to implement. And so we leveraged that downtime to build the company up, and then ended up selling it to SAP and SuccessFactors for $100 million. And it still to this day is one of their biggest products, their recruitment marketing platform product. So that was great, and I stayed with them for a bit. And then I started another company called ZapInfo, which was a recruiter productivity tool. Again, I'd kind of taken some time off and came back and said, hey, recruiters, what's up?
How much time do you take off during these times off?
Between 3 months and 9 months.
Enough to clear your brain?
Yeah, because you're kind of winding down and helping with the transition, and but at the same time, you can finally go for a walk and,
I mean, the entrepreneurial stories are amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So I use dilly-dallying as my downtime delight, right? I go around Costco and eat all the little free foods that they... And so it's a great way for me to just kind of have some reflective time and stuff. So that was good. But then again, when I came back to the recruiting side, the recruiters were spending all day on LinkedIn, on Indeed, searching, harvesting data, grabbing information, hand typing it into their CRM. I mean, it was just it was a big waste of time.
Right.
So I said, well, this is dumb. So we built the ZapInfo productivity tool. So it literally, like, I could be looking at any profile anywhere, and I could zap it, and it would instantly normalize it, and I could go, ooh, I use Salesforce, or I use SuccessFactors, and I could then zap the profile in. So within one mouse click, I could grab people, one mouse click, I could put them in, and then we built automation stuff even back then that would instantly do a connection request. Hi, Jason, it's Doug. I see we know so-and-so in common. So that was great, and we built all the back-end integration data delivery to everyone from Avature to Workday. So all of a sudden, COVID hit, and we were either going to have to raise money and keep going, or Indeed showed up and said, we really like what you're doing. It's one of our biggest problems is delivering candidate data value to our customers, and so join us. And so that's what got us to sell that business to Indeed, and then I helped Indeed build out a majority of their integration ecosystem. So, again, for the first time, the platforms didn't have to build towards Indeed, which they didn't want to do. Everything was pre-built, so it was just a matter of getting kind of the business kind of logistics figured out, and then turning it on so Indeed could deliver crazy value to their customers. And so I still do a little bit of work there, but I've just how I got here to the Match 2 piece was having lived on Indeed, which is the biggest supply of talent, if you will, and having worked with all the platform providers, and yet I still talk to VPs of TA, and they're still like, I have the 3 platforms. I have Beamery on top of this on top of my Workday to try to solve these candidate experience and and process and passive candidate capture and building my talent community. And it's just not.
So talk about the Match 2 piece, because I get a chance to teach at College of Charleston, and I was with a student, and the student said, I applied at Workday for 5 jobs. I said, what do you mean you applied at Workday for 5 jobs? And they're like, well, we were looking on the internet, and the URL said Workday. And they said, we applied 5 times in 5 different Workday instances.
Yeah.
And
they thought it could be one.
They thought it could be one. They're like, why do I have to enter my
right.
data 5 times?
Yeah.
So when we think about the premise of Match, and where you are, what you're
right.
doing now, like what's the inside out play here?
That's right. Yeah. Look, I looked at this, and I've worried a lot about candidate capture, and I've seen, what great models like LinkedIn have done to create really good social, interactive, participative types of things. And unfortunately, still in the talent industry, the problem AI can't solve is that everything's siloed. Candidates start from scratch everywhere they go. There's no consumer app other than an AI robot apply, which is not the answer.
Right.
That would really build what I would call the consumer candidate's expectation is that we have in the rest of our life.
Did you just say AI is not the answer?
I said AI can't solve this problem.
Okay.
This interconnected problem that would allow a candidate to basically build in a single account, kind of like my Uber, right? Uber connects me with thousands of drivers through a single interface.
Yep.
Well, why doesn't that exist for the talent industry?
So a candidate could be connected to thousands of things. Is that what you're saying? Or
Imagine showing up to a career site and it greets you, Jason, welcome to the bank. We're not hiring for people like you now, but we'd love you to follow our careers. We'll notify you when you're a good match for something. Or maybe if you are a great match, forget about searching for jobs. Your resume is perfect for these 3 positions, and here's why. Hey, you might have forgot one thing about team collaboration. We didn't see it. Do you have it? So it literally gamifies the experience, makes it more participative, and I don't even want to say personalized, because everyone says we do personalization. This is individualization. We already know who the person is. We know what their preferences and interests are. We know the content that they're going to, want to interact with and when. And so it really gives the candidate this powerful ability to have their own personal ATS, right? Now you're going to follow my process company. I've been following yours forever, but now we can interact and we can engage with each other, right?
So you've changed where the power sits.
It definitely balances and provides the candidate with, I call it informational asymmetry, so that they can now have control over their data. They can decide who, where, and when they're engaging. Candidates might apply for 5 or 6 jobs. Well, if we can help them to do that and to optimize how they match those jobs, the recruiter actually gets a better application product because it shows why the candidates. And again, we didn't rank or sort or score. The candidate did it.
So there's value to both sides.
There's value to both sides. So you can use some AI to be assistive and interactive, but you don't have to be assumptive and infer everything all the time. And
so sorry to interrupt, but I love how you're using language. So personalization versus individualization. I like that.
Correct.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah. Well, look, personalization. I have a funny tagline. I said, "Personalization without curation is frustration." In other words, I was on Amazon and I was helping my wife's son. They had their first baby, so I had to buy some diapers on Amazon. Well, for the next 3 weeks, everything for me on Amazon was diapers, 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 baby, 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 because I did a one-time thing, and so they assumed that that's all I was interested in. I had no ability to go in and say, look, guys, no more baby stuff. I did this one time, which is really interesting because I think Facebook does this really well. You can actually, if you get an ad, you can say, I don't want this ad anymore.
Right.
I want to hide this. I'm not interested in this. So they're one of the few people that's done that. And the talent industry would benefit so greatly by allowing candidates to have this interactive and curative ability to say, look, you're sending me these job alerts. I'm not even on the market right now. So you're campaigning me to death and nagging me to ask if I am in the market, if I'm not. Well, if you allow candidates to reach into your Beamery and reach into your Avature and say, I'm either on the market or I'm not, or I've got a new gig, or I've got some new skills, come and get me, right? Now I don't, it's not Every record in the database is not a to-do for a recruiter.
Right.
Every record is now a relationship that is bidirectional, and that brings massive efficiency to the entire market.
So just like all of these processes or journeys that are being reset, resetting the brains of recruiters or resetting the brains of talent acquisition, like, is that hard or easy with what you're doing today? Because I think, that's always been one of my challenges in the space.
Yeah.
Is, hey, let's develop a new way to do performance management. Cool. But no one wants to come along because they're too afraid they're going to break something, or that's not what we're used to, or that's not how we've always done it.
Yes.
Type thing. So, the two other times that you said you were retiring,
Yeah, that's right.
you said, I'm never working with HR people again because it's been hard to change, but you've been able to push them to change.
That's right.
Which is awesome. So how are you finding this? Sorry, that was a long-winded question.
No, it's one of the best questions, because the resistance, even if you really want to innovate, right? Like, so when we first came up with this idea and I talked with TA leaders, they were like, I said, if you could change anything, what would you change? They said, I would take job search off my career site. And I was just shocked. I'm like, I heard it 3 times.
Take job search off the career site.
Right. And I'm like, well, then what would you do? Like, how would you do it? How would people discover? They said, well, I'd make them upload their resume first, and then I would only show them jobs that are kind of a good fit for them. I'm like, well, why hasn't someone done that yet?
Which seems brilliant.
It reverses the recruiting, and it's honorable. It starts with the candidate first instead of the job first, which should be great candidate experience, like 101. And yet nobody anywhere had done it yet. So that was kind of the original genesis point for what we were doing with Match 2. And then all of a sudden people were like, look, I love and hate LinkedIn, and I love and hate, because they know who the candidates are, but they won't share with me who the candidate is. They'll let them apply once with their profile, but then if the guy updates his LinkedIn profile, it just doesn't automatically. I'm still having to chase people. So I wish I could have the benefit of what having a known and connected, not just captured, but a connected relationship would be like. And I'm like, well, why don't we replicate that? Why hasn't somebody built a direct talent network so that candidates and companies could now exchange data compliantly, consensually, and interactively in a way that happens every day?
Are they still competing? Do you find companies still competing because they're all going into the same pool looking for people? Or how do you talk about that with people?
Well, I don't. It's funny because they think that candidates that come to their career site aren't going to other career sites.
Right.
And they're all their candidates.
Exactly.
As though the candidate journey.
So they are competing no matter what.
Well, but what's interesting is I do think that companies have allowed the fatigue and the difficulty of applying for jobs to make it so difficult that candidates are discouraged to, if all of a sudden a candidate could with one click apply to a few places nicely, not an AI machine gun apply, but really good I'm a 90% match here, there, and there. And then even as the candidate is progressing through their process, I applied to the retailer here, the hospitality, the manufacturing company there, and they all can see how I'm progressing through their process. But what if all of a sudden I could give interactive visibility to how the candidate's progressing? How would that change things?
Yeah, no, it's an amazing refresh. And like you said, refresh, reset, and turn it inside out. And I'm wondering, as I'm thinking through this, if we think about the jobs market today.
Yeah.
We think about everything we've been reading about or seeing with the jobs data. What do you think this tool does to that?
It completely does what Facebook Marketplace did to Craigslist. I mean, I don't know which one you use more, but the beauty of Facebook Market is you have buyers and sellers all on the same platform. And the joke about Facebook Market is it's still available, right? And so, and then it creates this messaging and interactivity that brings efficiency to buyer and seller, and then they can rank each other, and it's just a much more efficient way to interact with data. And so we think that is what would usher forward a much more effective talent ecosystem where candidates and companies can better exchange those micro data points about, are you still in the market or not? Companies complain, we get ghosted all the time. Well, it's okay, well, you made it difficult for the candidate to apply. And then how can they log back in again and update their status? Oh, they can't. Oh, you're going to get back to them. Oh,
Right.
you took 4 weeks and they had a job 3 weeks earlier. So
Yep.
how are they supposed to tell you that they're not in the market anymore? And so with Match 2, we've actually built it so that the candidate with one mouse click can keep an entire, it's like a Google sheet that they've linked to all of their favorite employers and all the places they've applied to, which brings informational efficiency to levels that just aren't available. So I always like to say platforms did a great thing. Like the API universe within the talent industry is like this quiet thing that all of a sudden made this possible.
Yep.
And platforms have integrated the platforms great, right? Like Indeed Apply delivers talent to every platform in the marketplace, right? But it's like the candidate is still
Left out.
They don't have there's no person to platform integration system. And so that's the big thing we think Match 2 does, is it actually gives the person, the candidate, their integration to the entire talent ecosystem.
So when we think about all the constituents in this space, we think about the candidate. We think about the company hiring. We think about these ATS, applicant tracking systems, candidate relationship management systems. Like, is this another thing, or do you see it eventually? I know the R word is dangerous, but replacing some of these pieces.
I actually don't see it replacing them. I just see it making them all finally able to talk to each other.
Okay.
Right? It puts everyone on the same frequency. And so therefore it makes all those platforms better, right? So say, for example, a candidate who's a 90% match for a data science position applies to 3 different companies.
Yep.
And before he applied, he favorited the companies, so he got into their CRM. And we know that he was a 90% match. So companies with great CRMs will go, oh, this data scientist is going to go into my dynamic talent pool. And if the recruiter was smart, they would instantly talk to them, email them, engage them as they go through and apply, right? If that candidate all of a sudden has been sitting in our ATS for a week and now they're at second interview or they're at request for references at another company, I would hope that the ATSs that are great with all this agentic technology might do something about the fact that one of the highest quality candidates is progressing aggressively with other credible companies and other credible systems. So the credibility of that resume and candidate is something we should pay attention to.
Right.
And that's where we think that our ability to reciprocate that data and provide the ability for them to exchange that data actually makes possible what I think a lot of the ATS and CRM players have been espousing for years, but have still just been campaigning people to death.
So let's break into a journey. So I'm me, and I want to find a new job. So what role does Match 2 play in that? And do I buy Match 2 as Jason Averbook who's looking for a job? Or do I go to a career site, of, let's say, United Health Group?
Yeah.
And because they've bought Match 2, all of a sudden I have a better experience.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Who's the buyer?
Yep.
And then how does the value get spread across?
Yep.
And measuring the ROI.
Yep. No, it's a great question. So we're bringing Match 2 to market largely as an enterprise data service, right?
Okay.
To help candidates and companies better capture.
So a company like United Health Group would buy.
And a lot of them already have like apply with LinkedIn or apply with, and so what they do is we're using the combination of what we call our universal candidate portal, or the single portal for the candidates, with our universal talent connector, because people don't want to replace their ATS and their CRM and their career site. They took them forever to get this. But if I could just drop a piece of code in there that kind of acts like the
So you're not ripping out the organ.
That acts like the USB connector.
Yep.
Exactly. It's like how Paradox all of a sudden could be like, all of a sudden there's a chatbot on my site. So how companies have deployed technology with add-on or adaptive things, this follows that model perfectly.
Okay.
So I just drop a script in, and all of a sudden it can say, hey, instead of doing job search, why don't you let us match you to jobs? Oh, would you like to follow our career site? Great. Do it with your Match 2 account, and that will keep us connected together, right?
Okay.
So instead of just capturing people, we're literally capturing and connecting. And that's a free account that gets set up automatically once the candidate interacts with any Match 2 company site.
Okay.
And it's a free service to the candidates. They don't pay anything, and it uses the resume they uploaded at a company. And one of the things we had to do with this, Jason, is we promised the companies we would never make those candidates competitive, because there's other data services that instantly try to resell or pool.
Okay.
We said, no, our job, there's plenty of ways for candidates to find companies, to find jobs. There's too many.
Right.
But when they get to the doorstep of the company, what's going to be an easier way for them to have a personalized, simplified, more informed, optimized ability to not just meet that company the first time, but to stay in contact with them forever? And that's the data service we're promising to provide to candidates and companies. So candidates can't find companies, companies can't find, but when they do, we'll help keep them matched to opportunities with those companies for the rest of their career. So
HR tech, like, I don't know if you've been to the expo floor.
oh boy, it's like the state fair of tech.
Yeah. Corn dogs, cheese curds, French fries. I saw pictures of you at the state fair.
That's right.
But anyway, all that being said, when we think about all of those vendors, like, who else is doing this? Like, who else is doing the glue like this?
They're all using AI to try to make their siloed systems a little bit better, right, and a little bit easier. But as far as like the connective tissue that's really trying to help these two sides of the talent equation to communicate, we haven't seen a whole lot of it, especially someone that's finally allowed the candidate, if you will, to have their app or their application. And so that's why we're excited to bring it to market. We've got several large, I can't name them yet, platforms that said this solves a big problem for us too, because every candidate starts from zero, like you said with your work. They start from scratch on all of our client sites, never mind when they travel across all of the other platforms. And so if we really care about the candidate experience, like, this is something they really want, because it does take the friction away in certain ways, and then it adds a healthy friction or optimization in that interactive application process. But it solves a big platform problem, helps the companies win greatly, and really helps the candidates win.
So I'm going to tie this back to another analogy really quick. I know your brother's a very successful real estate agent.
Yeah.
Right? So, as someone who just helped his mother sell her house that she'd lived in for 56 years, the real estate agent was like, well, when should I take it off the market? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do I keep track of all of the people that have applied depending on, hey, did the house close, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's say someone gets a job. Do they stay in Match after that? And all of these places they applied, they still might say, you know what, I'll wait for a better offer and I'll go there. Or do they just disappear?
Yeah, that's, it's such a great question. And so even back at Jobs to Web, which was 12 or 14 years ago, we helped companies build these talent communities, which were largely people that hadn't applied yet, but wanted to get job alerts from companies.
When something opened up, right?
The next time something opened up.
Similar to real estate. Like, hey, I'm looking for something in this zip code.
Exactly. And we were capturing for some companies, 7,000 to 10,000 people a day that were logging in. And what was astonishing is then we would use the back end data to say, well, of all the people that signed up, who got alerts, and then who applied, and then who got hired. And then we went back and did a study to say, even people who got hired, did they turn off their job alerts? None of them did.
Wow.
Even inside of the companies. And so what was really interesting, it was Merck, I believe, was one of our first companies. He's like, not only did this help me hire everybody, but my number one source of hire for internal mobility is the job alerts that people used before they even got here.
Because so the people that already worked there still had the alerts on.
It was keeping them aware of what the next opportunity was going to be. And I think candidates always want to know what's going on. It's like an ambient awareness of what's happening in the market. Who's hiring for people like me? And in some way, I think once we get to cruising altitude, they're going to be like, I applied to 6 companies and this one got to me first, and I went with them. And we ask a little survey like, why'd you go with that company instead of the other ones? And so we can give really great data back to the companies that are using Match 2 as well to say, here's why you're losing
almost
hiring opportunities.
Win-loss type report.
And it's a way for the candidates to finally proclaim and provide that data so that their hope that the employers that they do want to work for can be better at what they do.
Wow, that's a great capability. Different than like a glass door.
Yes.
Right? Where it's, hey, even though it can be anonymous.
Exactly.
It's not tied to the candidate process. It's tied to the employment process.
That's exactly right. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Like, so I flew back from Croatia yesterday and it was horrible, right? I was supposed to be in the air for 8 hours and I was 20 hours.
Oh, I feel so bad for
And
you,
I flew
Doug.
for one of the biggest, my beloved Delta, right?
Yep.
And they knew I was frustrated. They knew that they made mistakes. I got this survey, and I had 8 hours in the air to fill it out, saying, here's all the ways you messed things up. And by the time I got back on the ground, I had an email from a supervisor that said, I saw your survey, I read it, you're right. We messed up. Here's a whole bunch of miles and a certificate for a free upgrade for your next flight. They couldn't upgrade me to Vegas. But it was just very interesting how they were able to use that and that quickly.
In real time.
In real time, go after a valued customer. And I think that's my hope for a year from now or 2 years from now is like we'll be done with ghosting and fake bot applies and the entire world will be connected, candidates and companies.
Yep.
And so even if somebody gets laid off at 5 o'clock on Thursday, by Friday at 9 or 10, they've got maybe 2 or 3 offers because they're not starting from scratch. I mean, that's the hardest thing. People all of a sudden, I'm unemployed. What do I do? Where do I go? Well, if you've got the playlist of the companies that you've interacted with over 10 or 12 years, and you can directly update and communicate, I'm back on the market and here's my new skills.
Yep.
And that goes right into their work days and into their SuccessFactors, which then triggers recruiters in the systems they work in. I mean, it's just going to be an amazingly different and much more, I think, fluid way for us to all do work.
Yeah, for sure. So, hey, so I'd like to tie this up. I'd wrap this up with kind of the state of the state today. Not Match.
Yep.
But we've got companies not hiring, and we have a bunch of college graduates who aren't able to find jobs.
It's not only college graduates. It's mid-career and late career people that are at mass. I mean, one of the most interesting problems we're forced with now, Jason, is not when we look at our matching, the people that are using the matching engine. We thought the biggest problem was going to be is like the job requires this, and do you have enough experience to match up to it? The bigger problem we're having is there's people that are overexperienced that are applying for down resume jobs, so they're way overexperienced. So now how all of a sudden do I calibrate for that in order to be able to right-size people based upon those dynamics? And I think that's going to be as big of a problem going forward with how AI changes the workforce and stuff. And it's a really interesting problem. But keeping yourself turned on, tuned in, connected.
And a company that's not hiring right now,
Yeah, and if
there's
companies
still
not hiring,
value in this.
Oh my gosh. In a recession market, we call it recession recruiting. That's when candidates are free. And they're at your career site in massive numbers, but they're searching for a job. It doesn't exist. There's no way for them to raise their hand and say, I'd like to work for you someday.
Because it shows nothing.
It's apply or goodbye.
The shelves are empty.
The entire strategy, unfortunately, of most of the career sites is find and apply to a job. And if you could join our talent community, maybe, but again, that's like putting someone's business card into a fishbowl in the basement of the company, right? It's not. And so smart companies harvest candidates like crazy.
Yep.
Like we just built our pipeline reporting dashboard, which will help companies to look at by job title, how many candidates they're harvesting now when they're not recruiting.
Yep.
That will then fill future jobs for when they come back online.
Yeah.
So we have this incredible predictive engine, which will help them to see that then when they want to recruit, and the power of it was dramatic. Like when we did this at Jobs to Web, the time for a qualified candidate went from 6 weeks to 6 days. The cost per applicant went from $40 to 5 cents.
Wow.
So when it's kind of like the airlines, right? They buy gas when it's cheap because they know it's not going to stay cheap. They put it into big fuel tanks and reserves so that when the market changes, they now have strategically built a hire-ready database of connected candidates.
And I could see this data maybe eventually getting onto the blockchain with what the government's talking about doing with jobs.
Absolutely.
Right? So not only are we showing jobs available, but how many people are searching, what are they searching for, to show what kind of movement we have in the entire space.
It helps with everything because you can even see where candidates are interested in working for your company at.
Yep.
So where should we open up a new headquarters or where should we not? I mean, all of that stuff is incredibly important data for companies to have. But if they're flying blind, I call it, and just kind of living in this transactional recruiting mind, where it's like, oh shucks, we're recruiting, and now where do we get people? I don't see it as a strategic thinking approach it all.
Well, congratulations for doing this again.
Ah,
I'm glad you're still in
it's
the
a
space.
labor of love.
I'm glad you're still in the space.
Yeah.
I truly think the combination of the experience it's going to create, plus the data and the insight that it's going to create, will change talent. Not just talent acquisition, but talent.
Yes, I think you're exactly right.
Forever.
I mean, how it will interact and how it will evolve will be perfectly informed back and forth by both sides, which is the way a good data model and data market should work.
So one thing you want to take away from HR Tech this year?
I'd love to win the Pitch Fest because we're doing that today.
Good luck.
But we're having a lot of great meetings. It's just been great to see how responsive the big platforms have been, because as you know, they're still the ones that will bring this to market and say, hey, to our customer network, this is important. This adds amazing efficiency. And so I've been very thrilled with the response of all of the CRM and all of the ATS platforms to what we're doing. So
good. Well, thank you for being here. We'll make sure we put your contact information in the show notes. And good luck today.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Take care.